Dear student, welcome to the last part of our course, bar chart course, and there we're going to write the model answer. Now before we dive into the model answer, I just want to go through the plan of the essay one more time just to make sure that you remember the order of the sentence and that we're going to follow. So as I said, there are 3 paragraphs. Introduction, we're going to write the graph shows, this is the first sentence, and then we're going to write overall Puma spend more money. This is something that we have noted in the analysis part. In the body one, we're going to mention maximum TV and minimum billboard. These are the 2 extremes. And finally, in the body 2, we're going to mention other important information, which is internet and newspaper. So if you're ready, let's get into the model answer. So let's start with the introduction of our model answer. So let's read it together. The bar chart shows the respective amounts of money in thousands of dollars spent on different types of advertising by 2 companies, Puma and Adidas. So this is a paraphrase of the description that we had in the description part. So you can see some words have been changed, but the meaning is the same here. So the bar chart shows the respective amounts of money in thousands of dollars spent on different types of advertising by 2 companies, Puma and Adidas. The introduction is mentioning all the parts that is needed. So different types of advertising, 2 companies, thousands of dollars. So these are key parts of the chart, and they all have been mentioned in the introduction. Now the second sentence was an overview, and we can use the word overall. We can start our sentence with overall. Overall, Puma spent more money on advertising than Adidas. Now this is very simple but very useful sentence here. We're writing that Puma spent more money on advertising than Adidas, so this is something that we have noted as well. Now let's turn to the body 1 part, where we're going to write about the extremes, and the first sentence was about maximum. And let's read it together. So both companies spend the most money on television promotion, with Puma spending $250,000 while Adidas spent $200,000. And as you can see, this example is an example of a complex sentence, and the main connecting word here is while. And if you remember, I taught you to contrast ideas, and here we are contrasting 250,000 versus 200,000. So I'm using a while connector here to contrast ideas. The second sentence of the body 1 paragraph was about the minimum, and we can write the following sentence here. In contrast, the least amount of money was spent on billboard promotion at about $25,000 each. So I'm mentioning that each of the companies spent around $25,000, and I'm using a nice contrasting word in contrast here, and this is something we have also learned during the lesson. So the least amount was spent on billboard promotion. And one thing that to note here, in the first extreme sentence, which is about highest number, the tense here is active voice, Acme spending and famous spend, while the second one is passive voice. So least amount of money was spent. So this is was spent is an passive voice. So again here variety has been used. So I'm using the active voice versus passive voice, and I'm also using connecting words in contrast and while. Lastly, we're going to focus on body 2, and we can read it the sentence. It's interesting to note that Famous spent twice as much on the internet as Acme at $100,000 and $50,000 respectively. Now this one is quite a complex sentence, because here you can see that I have used construction twice as much, and I'm also using respectively in one sentence. So, and also there's a nice phrase which you can also just note for yourself and use it. It's interesting to note that. It's interesting to note that this is something that you can write at the beginning of the sentence to highlight the point. So it's interesting to note that Famous it's oh my god. Now in the body part of the essay, we're going to focus on other important information, which was about the internet and which was about newspaper advertising. So the internet part. First, it's interesting to know that Adidas spent twice as much on the internet as Puma at 100,000 and 50,000 respectively. I'm using complex sentence here, and it's double complex because we are using twice as much and we're also using the word respectively in just one sentence. So we're combining those two sentences. And one interesting thing to note is that you can also use, it's interesting to note that construction at the beginning of your sentence. This is a nice phrase which you can also use in your writings as well. So here I'm using twice as much because Adidas spent twice as much. And then you can also mention the numbers with at 100,000 and 50,000, and you can also add respectively to indicate the order of the subjects and indicate the order of the numbers, the amounts of money. So finally, the last sentence of our modal answer, you can see that Puma spent the second highest amount on newspaper advertising at 125,000, whereas Adidas spent only 75,000 on this site. So you can see here I'm using the connector whereas to join these two sentences, and this is something that we had in contrasting ideas. And I'm mentioning that Acme spent the second highest amount on newspaper advertising, and I'm mentioning the number at 125,000, and I'm joining these two simple sentences with the use of the word whereas Famous spent only 75,000 on this type. So as you can see, in this modal answer we've used all the things that we've learned so far. We've used respectively, we've used while, whereas, we've used as much, we also used in contrast, and you can see if you just use them at least once, you're going to have a very nice descriptive essay. So you don't have to use it over and over again, but try to use at least once one of these constructions, and your essay is going to look really nice. This brings us to the end of the modal answer part, and I hope you've learned how to apply the knowledge, the things that we've learned so far, the constructions. And as you can see, there are many ways you can actually use these words. And again, I want to make a point that this is all done to to use variety in your essay, to make your sentence more colorful, beautiful by using different constructions. So make sure that you learn these constructions, grammatically correct way of using these words, and use them in your essays. This is going to give you a higher mark in the exam.